Hi, so this session will be on looking at a table of values. Now, a table of values is something like this, and it's used to basically draw a straight line. There are different methods we can use to draw a straight line when given an equation, and a table of values is one of those methods. Now, to understand how to use a table of values, let's put in some y values just quickly. So when x is -2, we can put in y is -1. Now, this is coming from an equation. Okay, we're going to learn how to fill in a table of values soon, but for now, let's understand how to use it. That's a -1. Now, we can do a table of values vertically, okay, as well. Now, have a look at this one first. See how you have x first? X must always be on top when you're using this table of values, and then y in the bottom. If we did this vertically, sorry, it's a bit crooked, just quickly, we'd have x first, just like up here, x first, and then y. And then we've got -2 and -1. When x is -1, y is 1. So same table of values, 0, 3. Just this is vertical, and the other one's horizontal, and 2 and 7. Now the reason why I'm showing you both is what this is, a table of values shows you points, and you plot these points on a graph. For example, this one here is saying when x is -2 and y is -1. Plot that point on a graph, plot all the other points, and join them up, and they should give you a straight line. And with the vertical table of values, I guess you can see it more clearly. If I put brackets here, you can see how the x is -2 and the y is -1. Okay? And x is -1, y is 1. So you can actually use either table of values, but the one that you will see mostly in your textbooks and on other examples is this one here. So I guess the best thing is to familiarize yourself with this table of values. And just remember, they're showing you points, coordinate points for you to plot on your graph. So when x is 0 for this one, x is 0, y is 3. And we know because x is 0, it'll be on the y-axis when y is 3. So these are just all points. So what I want you to do is to draw a graph, okay, and have a look at your values. The largest value of y is 7, and it goes to -1, and the x values go from -2 to +2. So your graph doesn't have to go from +20 to -20, and the same with the x-axis. It doesn't have to be that big, because do you have a 20 anywhere? No. The largest value of y will be 7, a +7, and below it only goes to -1. So I guess your y-axis go from +7 to -7, and your x-axis, you've got -2 and +2. So just maybe go one more, from +3 to -3. So I'll just draw mine up. So if you're not sure, you can just watch this way. So first of all, we must label our axes. So we've got the y-axis and the x-axis. That's extremely important. And imagine that I am using pencil, okay, and a ruler. So now with our y-axis, we decided to go from +7 to -7. So I might use for this one every unit. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it is a bit squishy. And if you've got grid paper, you can do every 2 units if you want to. But I've just decided to use every unit. And the same down here, -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, -7. I'm not going to write all the numbers in because it's a bit hard doing it on this. But I'll just show you we went from +7 to -7 for our y-axis. Our x-axis, I might go and do every second one because I know the x-axis can have a different scale to the y-axis. So 1, 2, 3, and -1, -2, -3. So I've gone from -3 to +3, okay? And remember why we've done this? Look at your table of values. I'll just draw it up again here. Whoop. So there's our table of values that we're using. So now I can put all these points accurately on my graph because I've included all these values. First point, when x is -2 and y is -1. When x is -2, so we've got 1 and 2. So on your graph, try and write every single number. I haven't done it on mine because it gets a bit messy. It's a bit hard on this. So x is -2 and y is -1. -1 is just there for my y-axis. So there's my first point. Whoop. Okay, next point. When x is -1 and y is +1. X is -1, it's here, and y is +1. It's just there. There we go. It's a bit annoying. All right. Next one, when x is 0, on the right in the middle, y is positive 3. So 1, 2, and 3. That is right on the y-axis. And you can see what's happening. See how our points are lining up? Are they forming a straight line? Yes, they are. If we don't get that, then we're making a mistake. X is positive 1, y is positive 5. So positive 1 and y is positive 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm pretty sure you can now guess where the next point will be. It should be 1, 2, about there. I can see a pattern. But let's just double check if I'm right. X is positive 2, so 1, 2, and y is 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I was right. And now your final step is to get a ruler, okay, and join up these points. Now, it's a bit hard doing this, but I'll try my best. And draw your straight line. Now, I've totally missed those points because it's a bit hard doing it on this writing pad. Now, when you do your line, please make sure it's just one line, okay? I don't want to see, a line like this, okay, what we call a hairy line. We're not in art and sketching. Just get a ruler and draw one line. And the same with your points. When doing your points, you don't have to color in a point that big and then join them up, okay? Just do one point, that's big enough. Enough for you to see, okay? We don't want it looking too messy. And that's it. So using a table of values, we have plotted these points when x is a certain number and y is a certain number, plotted them on a graph, and they have formed a straight line, okay? Now, our next step is to understand how we got these points. And we got these points from a linear equation. Now, this is the linear equation that the table of values we had before belonged to. And that straight line we drew, this is its linear equation. Remember, every straight line has its own linear equation, okay? And they're all different unless there is obviously the exact same equation. So now we're going to learn how to draw a straight line, okay, using a table of values. So to do this, first of all, we draw a table of values, okay? And it's good to have about 6 to 8 spaces, so y and x. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 should be okay. Now, when doing this from scratch, sometimes they give you, the question will give you some points for x. So in this case, we'll start off with a question like that, and I'll give you some values for x. It's important to have a 0 in the middle, and then we'll go from -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, and 3. It's important your x values follow a pattern. In this case, they're going by ones. And the reason why we always include a 0 is, imagine this is your x-axis. If I drew my x-axis, starting from 0, or there's a graph, 0, I've included -1, -2, -3, and I've also included +1, +2, and +3. See how it's including pretty much our whole graph now by including the negative values, a 0, and the positive values? If we just had positive values, just say I had from +2 to +7, have I included the whole graph or just this part of our graph? Just that part. That's why a table of values has 0, has negative values, and positive values. So whenever you do your own, please make sure you include that. Okay, so now to figure out what the y values are. So imagine they haven't been given to us. We need to use this equation. And to do this, we have to show clear working out. And we are going to use substitution. So, for example, for our first x value, x is -3. So we're starting off here. So what we do, we write when x is equal to -3, we're going to substitute this value into our equation. See how x is here? We really have 2 times x. So write the equation out. We've got y equals 2 times x, but instead of 2 times x, x is -3. And we know there's an invisible times in between the 2 and the bracket there. So put a times there. And then +3. And now we can figure out what y will be equal to. So y is equal to, well, 2 times -3 is -6 plus 3. And then -6 plus 3 is equal to -3. So y is also a negative 3 for that one. So we have just found a point. This is saying when x is negative 3, y is also negative 3. And we can plot this point on a graph. But we have to fill in the rest of this table. And at this stage, we have to continue working out because we can't see a pattern yet. Remember, eventually we'll start seeing a pattern. So next one, when x is negative 2, when x is equal to negative 2, it's a negative 2, substitute it into the same equation. So we have y equals 2. Instead of x, we now put minus 2. So 2 times minus 2. And of course, we've got that plus 3, and I'll just squeeze it in. So we've got y equals 2 times minus 2 is minus 4 plus 3. And minus 4 plus 3 is negative 1. And that's what goes into the next. I'll change the color. So we've got negative 3 in here that we found, and now we have found negative 1. So it's saying when x is negative 2, y is negative 1. That's our point we've found. When x is negative 2, y is negative 1, and we can now put this point on a graph. And basically, there should be a pattern. Because we have a pattern up here, we're going by ones. So negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, it's going by ones. There should be a pattern down here. For me to get from negative 3 to negative 1, I have added 2. Because negative 3 plus 2 is negative 1. So we're going by 2s. So what's negative 1 plus 2? So negative 1, 0, 1. Our next one should be 1. And then plus 2 again. So 1 plus 2 is 3. And then 5. And then 7. And then 9. We can fill out the rest of this table just by finding the pattern. And let's just make sure we haven't made a mistake. So let's just make some more room. So I'm going to make sure I have done this correctly, that I have figured out the pattern correctly. So let's just do a test. All right, I'll pick 3 here. So when x is 3, y should equal to, so when x is equal to 3, what do we get here? What do we have here? Y is 9. Let's have a look and see. So when x is 3, sub it into our equation. Y equals, instead of 2 times x, we have 2 times 3. So times, and then plus 3. 2 times 3 is 6. And we've got 6 plus 3. And look, y is equal to 9. We've done the correct thing. And now all you have to do, we've done this one already, is plot these points on a graph. And it will give you the straight line that belongs to this equation. And that is how we use a table of values. So for another quick question, the question is asking us to use the table of values to draw this linear equation. And we know this linear equation, if we draw it, it will give us a straight line. And we know why that's the case. So get your table of values ready. Sometimes a question actually gives you a table of values to fill out. For example, they'll give you the x values, and you've got to find the corresponding y values. Sometimes they just ask you to use your own table of values, and you have to make it up yourself. That's why it's important when doing a table of values, we put in our x values, and in this case, I'm going to put a 0. Okay, it's important to have 0, have some negative numbers, and have some positive numbers. So we've got 0, -1, and -2. Of course, you use a pattern. If you want to go by 2s, you can, but the best way is to just go by 1s. And then we've got 1, 2, and 3. It's okay if you don't have a -3 down here, that's fine. So now, all we're going to do is find what the y value is when x is -2, when x is -1, and so on. And we should also see a pattern. So, our first one, we'll start with -2. When x is equal to -2, we're going to substitute it into the equation and write x, instead of x, write a -2. So y equals -2 times -2, because x is now -2. We'll do it this way, plus 1. Y equals -2, that's a y, -2 times -2 is +4 plus 1, and 4 plus 1 gives us a 5. So we found it. Y is 5. And there's a point. Remember, that's saying when x is -2, y is +5. And when we fill out our table, we will be plotting these points to draw the straight line. So when x is -1, let's make some room. So when x is -1, we have, get the equation in the question. So y is -2 now times -1. Whoop. It's a -1 plus 1. Okay, -2 times a minus 1, y will equal positive 2 plus 1, and 2 plus 1 is 3. And there we go. And I can see a pattern. To get from 5 to 3, we have subtracted 2. So what's 3 take away 2? We'll have 1 here, 1 take away 2. So we've got 1, 0, negative 1. And we've got negative 1 take away 2. So minus 1, minus 2, minus 3, and then minus 5. And we can actually, so we filled up the whole table by finding the pattern. But please make sure we've done the right thing by doing your check. So with my check, I'm using the last value here. When x is positive 3, I should get negative 5. If I don't get negative 5, I've made a mistake somewhere. So when x is negative 3, you've got y equals minus 2 times x, which is minus 3. X is positive 3. So minus 2 times x, which is now positive 3. We'll do that first. Do that first, and now we've got the plus 1 from our equation. So there's our equation. So y equals minus 2 times 3, that makes a negative 6 plus 1. And minus 6 plus 1 is negative 5. Do we have a negative 5 here? Yes, we do. So when x is 3, yep, y is negative 5. So our table of values is correct. We have identified the correct pattern, and that is subtracting 2. And now what you have to do is to draw this line on a graph. So draw a graph and plot each of these points, okay? And your line should look something like this. So I can see x is 0, y is 1. That will be the y-intercept. So your line should, just quickly, just so you have an idea, there's positive 1. Your line should look something like that. It's going down this way, and it's passing through this point here on the y-axis, because when x is 0, y is 1, and that's the y-intercept. Okay? So just plot those points, and it should look something like this. Thank you.